For over 2,000 years, two ancient Greek thinkers have shaped nearly every idea we have about truth, morality, science, and reality itself. Their names are Plato and Aristotle. They were teacher and student, yet they disagreed on almost everything. One believed in a perfect world beyond our senses, a higher reality of eternal truths. The other trusted the world we live in, the things we can see, touch, and reason through. And even today, the arguments between them still echo in every classroom, every scientific lab, every debate about what's real and what's just an idea. Plato was born in Athens around 427 BCE. He was a student of Socrates, and he believed that reality was more than what our eyes could see. For Plato, the world around us was like a shadow, a blurry, imperfect reflection of a perfect, invisible world he called the world of forms or ideas. In his view, everything in our reality, a chair, a tree, even love or beauty, was just an imperfect copy of its ideal form. Imagine a perfect circle. You can never draw it by hand, yet you know exactly what it looks like in your mind. Plato said that perfect circle exists, not physically but in the realm of forms. That's where true reality lies. Now let's pause and ask, why did Plato think that way? Because he saw that the material world is constantly changing. Everything ages, breaks, and dies. So how can we call it real when it never stays the same? Plato thought there must be something higher, something unchanging, an ultimate truth behind all appearances. To him, knowledge wasn't about observing the world, it was about remembering these perfect forms with the help of reason and philosophy. If that sounds mystical, it kind of is. Plato's philosophy leans toward the spiritual and abstract. He didn't fully trust the senses. He believed the physical world deceives us, just like how a stick looks bent when placed in water, or how our emotions can twist our judgment. To reach truth, he said, we must rise above the senses and think rationally, like a mathematician solving an eternal equation. Now, enter Aristotle, Plato's brightest student, but also his greatest critic. Aristotle respected his teacher deeply, but he thought Plato's world of forms was unnecessary and disconnected from reality. He believed that truth isn't somewhere far away. It's right here in the physical world, waiting to be studied, observed, and understood. Where Plato said, reality is in the mind, Aristotle replied, reality is in the world. He looked at nature, plants, animals, stars, and said, this is where truth lies. If you want to know what something truly is, don't imagine a perfect version of it. Study the real one in front of you. For Aristotle, knowledge comes from experience. You touch, you see, you analyze, and you build understanding step by step. This simple disagreement, ideas versus observation, became the foundation of Western thought. Plato gave birth to idealism. Aristotle gave birth to empiricism, and their rivalry runs through history. When religion dominated Europe, the world leaned toward Plato, the belief in higher invisible truths. When science rose during the Renaissance, thinkers rediscovered Aristotle, the belief that truth comes from evidence, not faith. But who was right? Let's test their ideas in real life. Take science. Modern science is built almost entirely on Aristotle's method. We test, we observe, we measure. We don't assume an invisible world of perfect truths. We deal with the imperfect but testable world around us. In medicine, for example, we don't rely on abstract forms of health. We examine real bodies, collect data, and refine our understanding. That's pure Aristotelian thinking. But don't dismiss Plato too quickly. His ideas laid the groundwork for ethics, mathematics, and even artificial intelligence. Think about it. In math, we still use perfect ideals. There is no perfect triangle in the physical world. Yet geometry works because we treat these perfect forms as real in a conceptual sense. Plato might say, "See, You can't do science without my ideas. And when we talk about morality, Plato's influence becomes even stronger. He argued that goodness is not relative. There's an ideal form of good that exists beyond opinion or culture, something that is truly good, always and everywhere. Even if humans disagree about morality, Plato would say they're just confused about the same universal truth. This belief still shapes how we talk about justice and ethics today. Aristotle, on the other hand, believed morality wasn't about chasing perfect ideals. It was about living wisely in the real world. He said the good life comes from finding balance, what he called the golden mean. Courage is the balance between cowardice and recklessness. Generosity is the balance between greed and wastefulness. For him, ethics wasn't about following divine rules or perfect ideals. It was about developing character through experience and reason. If we look at human psychology, Aristotle seems closer to reality. We learn by doing, not by remembering invisible truths. Children don't come into the world knowing math or morality. They learn through trial, error, and repetition. That's pure observation-based learning, the very thing Aristotle valued most. But Plato wasn't entirely wrong either. His belief that truth transcends opinion still resonates today, especially in philosophy and mathematics. When we say, justice should be fair, or truth matters even if no one believes it, we're speaking in a very Platonic tone. We're appealing to something absolute, something beyond human preference. In politics, too, their ideas clash. Plato dreamed of a utopia ruled by philosopher kings, wise leaders who understand the higher truths and guide society accordingly. He distrusted democracy, believing that ordinary people, driven by emotion and ignorance, could easily make destructive choices. He saw what happened to Socrates, who was executed by the Athenian democracy and lost faith in the wisdom of the masses. Aristotle, however, took a more practical view. He didn't seek perfection. He sought stability. He studied 158 different city-states to understand what makes a government work. He saw democracy as flawed but valuable when balanced with law and reason. Where Plato designed ideals, Aristotle designed systems. This is why Plato is often called a dreamer and Aristotle a realist. Plato gave us vision, a picture of what could be. Aristotle gave us method, a way to test what works, and perhaps both are essential. Without Plato, we wouldn't dare to imagine. Without Aristotle, we wouldn't know how to build. Even in modern science, you can see both at play. Theoretical physicists, who imagine unseen dimensions and possibilities, think like Plato. Experimental scientists who test and measure those ideas think like Aristotle. The progress of human knowledge depends on the balance between them. Imagination and evidence. So, who was right? Maybe the better question is, who was right when? When we're searching for meaning, Plato speaks to us. When we're searching for facts, Aristotle leads the way. Plato reminds us that ideas matter, that there's more to reality than what our senses show. Aristotle reminds us that truth must be grounded in evidence, not belief. Plato looked up and saw the heavens of eternal truth. Aristotle looked down and saw the world of living reality, and humanity has been walking between those two ever since. Our heads in the clouds, but our feet on the ground. In the end, neither completely defeats the other, because both express something essential about being human. We are dreamers and observers. We imagine perfection, yet we live in imperfection. We think about eternal truths, yet we touch the changing world. Maybe wisdom is learning to hold both, the idealism of Plato and the realism of Aristotle, without losing either one. That's what keeps philosophy alive. The debate never ends. Plato versus Aristotle isn't just ancient history. It is the battle inside every one of us, between what we dream and what we can prove, between what we hope for and what we can see. And perhaps in that balance lies the real truth.